It's great to be here with you guys. I just want to introduce my friend Adam, who's there. Some of you might remember Adam. Phil might. Adam is a longtime Diamond Sangha practitioner, and he lives in St. Louis. But I invited him to come tonight because I thought he might be helpful with what I'm going to be talking about. It turns out today is Dogen's birthday, just found out. So yeah, so my topic isn't quite on that topic, but I guess Dogen kind of covers everything. So happy birthday, Dogen. Yeah, so this is so nice, that you guys do this on Wednesday nights. It's really late for me, but I think I'm going to try to make some of them because it's just a nice format, where it's a little less formal and we have conversation. That's kind of my preferred mode. So I'm grateful. So thanks for inviting me back again. And I think I know everybody except maybe Richard and I have never met in person, but hi, Carol. Hi, Gregory. Hi, Jay. Phil. So what I've been doing this month, and Adam has too, is participating in Upaya Zen Center's winter practice period. And I was there a couple of years ago for the last live winter practice period. So they've been online since then. But I wanted to be part of this one because they are practicing with the song of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi. So I love this piece, although we don't really include it in our, sutra service. I don't know if you guys do at Rocks and Clouds. Do you chant the Jewel Mirror? No. And so, yeah, it's just, it's such a beautiful, rich piece, and I'm sure you're somewhat familiar with it. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what I'm learning there and how it kind of integrates with some things that are happening now and this week, especially with the Martin Luther King Day. So just as a little introduction, you probably know, but the Jewel Mirror Samadhi is attributed to Dongshan, although he attributes it to his teacher, and it's unclear who's actually responsible for it. But Dongshan's teacher, Yunyan, really kind of transmitted this teaching on suchness to Dongshan, who then really, kind of worked with it for his whole life. But when he was with Yunyan, he was confused about the teaching. He didn't get it. And when he left him, the story goes that he stopped by a stream and he looked into the stream. Maybe this is where the jewel mirror part comes, because, when you look in a stream, it's all silver and gold in a way when it's rippling. But he had a realization there. And the realization was, I am not it, yet in truth, it is me. So that's kind of the core of this this beautiful song, which is just filled with startling and beautiful imagery. So what I'd like to do is read it, and you can just relax, maybe close your eyes. If you know it, don't know it anymore. If you know the next line, forget the next line, and just listen to the words, and just listen, beginner's mind. The one I'm going to read is the one they use at Upaya, which is, there's many translations. This is the one that was translated, I think, by Myvanwy and Bernie Glassman, is my understanding. So here we go. Song of the Jewel Mirror Awareness. The Dharma of thusness is intimately conveyed by Buddha ancestors. Now you have it, keep it well. Filling a silver bowl with snow, hiding a heron in the moonlight. They are similar, though not the same. Side by side, you can see the differences. The meaning is not in the words, yet one pivotal instant can reveal it. Move and you are trapped. Miss and you fall into confusion and doubt. Turning away and touching are both wrong, for it is like a massive fire. To depict it with complex words is to defile it. In the darkest night, it is perfectly clear. In the brilliance of dawn, it remains hidden. It acts as a guide for beings. Its use removes all suffering. Although it is not created, it is not beyond words. It is like facing a jewel mirror. Form and image behold each other. You are not it, yet it is you. Like a newborn child, it is endowed with 5 aspects. No coming, no going, no arising, no abiding. Ba ba wa wa. Is there anything said or not? In truth, this has no meaning, for the words are not yet clear. Like the 6 lines of the double split hexagram. The relative and absolute integrate. Piled up, they make 3. The complete transformation makes 5. It is like the taste of the 5-flavored herb, like a diamond thunderbolt, wondrously embraced within the absolute. Drumming and singing go together. Penetrating the source and traveling the way, you cover the territory and embrace the road. Complications are auspicious, do not resist them. What is natural and inconceivable belongs neither to delusion nor enlightenment. Causes and conditions at this moment shine completely in the silence. So fine it enters nowhere. So vast it exceeds all bounds. A hairbreadth deviation and you are out of harmony. Through the teachings of sudden and gradual, different methods have arisen. Even though you master such teachings, the truth keeps on escaping. Sitting still, yet inwardly moving, like a tethered colt, a trapped rat. The ancestors pitied them and offered them the teachings. According to their delusions, they called black as white. When delusions disappear, the natural mind reveals itself. If you want to follow the ancient path, please observe the ancients of former times. Some try to attain the Buddha way by gazing at a tree for 10 eons. They are like a tiger with tattered ears or a hobbled horse. With low aspirations, you will see jewel pedestals, fine clothing. And with a sense of wonder, you'll see black badgers and white bulls. Yi, with his archer's skill, could hit the mark from 100 paces. But when arrow points meet head on, how could it be a matter of skill? When the wooden man begins to sing, the stone woman gets up to dance. This does not come by knowing, nor does it involve ideas. Ministers serve their lords, children obey their guardians. Not obeying is not filial. Failure to serve is of no help. Practice invisibly, work intimately. Be the fool with no voice. For realizing true continuation is called the host within the host. The song, which is quite beautiful. So one of our teachers for our practice period is Charlie Picorni. You guys are very familiar with Charlie. And he, after we had one session with him, Adam said, hey, I think I sat next to that guy at session. And sure enough, because he came here one time, he stayed at my house. So it was really nice to see him. But what he talked about, he also talked again today, but I'm gonna talk about what he talked about last week. And he basically was saying that the first lines, the Dharma of thusness is intimately conveyed by Buddha ancestors. Now you have it, keep it well. What does keep it well mean? Keeping it well, keeping suchness well. And so he talked about these 3 ways that he sees us taking care of suchness. And he said, think not of what the jewel mirror can do for you. Think what you can do for the jewel mirror. So how do we take care of the jewel mirror? So in 3 ways. So the first way he talked about was embodied practice, which is, of course, our practice. Practice without expectation, without something, trying to make something happen. We already have it. There's nothing to get. So this non-transactional practice that we work with and work with and work with. It's a process of healing and relief. So just with our practice realization, to use the Dogen term, we are caring for suchness. The second way was he called inquiry. And I think we might be more comfortable with words like curiosity or not knowing. And the meaning is not in the words, but one pivotal moment can reveal it. As Charlie said, if we know what we're looking for, we're not really looking. That's kind of good. So he talked about staying in the radical learner mode and abandoning the seduction of reduction. Not reducing what we don't know to something that we know. Like the song says, with a sense of wonder, you'll see black badgers and white bulls. Keeping that sense of wonder. And then the third way that he talked about, which is really what I want to talk about a little bit more tonight, is he called communal relational practice. And this is, caring for thusness by expressing it in our lives through the Bodhisattva vows. In the darkest night, it is perfectly clear. In the brilliance of dawn, it remains hidden. It acts as a guide for beings. Its use removes all suffering. That is a call to the Bodhisattva heart. Its use removes all suffering. What does that mean? One thing that Charlie talked about was, he said, Samadhi itself is profoundly relational. And we are always, sometimes we call this no self, but we're always forming each other. There's a reciprocity with all things, not just people, but all things. Drumming and singing go together. The wooden man begins to sing, the stone woman gets up to dance. It's a flow, and we are always in relationship. And I feel like, this kind of refers to sangha. And sometimes I feel like we take refuge in Buddha, how great, and the Dharma, how vast and incredible. And then sangha is just kind of like who we're stuck practicing with. Sometimes it feels like that to me. Okay. But, I've been thinking about this, and I've been thinking about this in terms of King, especially, and the beloved community, but I'm going to say a little bit more about that. But, sometimes I feel that Zen can be a very private practice. And especially for us as lay practitioners, it's not, we can feel like that because we're not surrounded by people practicing all the time like you would in a monastery or a practice community. And when I start to feel like it's hidden or it's private, I think I'm probably off a little bit, because the practice should not feel that separate, but we're saturated with our individualistic mindset in our culture, and it's very hard for us to move out of that in a way. So this week was Martin Luther King birthday, of course. And in Yellow Springs, in our little community, this is a huge day. We have two very big community days. One is New Year's Eve, when everybody goes downtown and we drop the ball. And then the other one is Martin Luther King Day. We always have a very big celebration, jamming a whole lot of people into a room that does, a hall that doesn't fit enough people. And it's a wonderful event, but of course the last 2 years have been on Zoom. And this year felt a little sad to me, because 60 years later, we're still wanting voting rights. We're still fighting tooth and nail for voting rights. So it was a strange kind of day for me. but it made me think, I was thinking about his life, and I often think this about his connection with Thich Nhat Hanh, his meeting, his friendship with Thich Nhat Hanh. I don't think we make enough of this. It's really kind of an interesting relationship. And now there's a new book by this guy, Mark Andrus. It's Parallax Press, which is Thich Nhat Hanh's press, called In the Beloved Community, the Friendship of Thich Nhat Hanh and Martin Luther King Jr. And I think this is really the first time anybody's like put this together, what really happened here. And they only knew each other for maybe 2 or 3 years, from the 3 or 4 years, 65 maybe to 68. And the fact that they even met is kind of a miracle. I mean, how could they met in Chicago? Someone introduced them, and King was surrounded by his people, and here comes this monk from Vietnam, of all places. And they met, and they got together, and they met for a while together. Nobody has any record of what they talked about. But when they came out of this meeting, they gave a press conference, and they issued a statement together. So I'm just going to read this statement. I mean, this is after knowing each other for an hour or something. We believe that the Buddhists who have sacrificed themselves, like the martyrs of the civil rights movement, do not aim at the injury of the oppressors, but only at changing their policies. The enemies of those struggling for freedom and democracy are not man. They are discrimination, dictatorship, greed, hatred, and violence, which lie within the heart of man. These are the real enemies of man, not man himself. We also believe that the struggles for equality and freedom in Birmingham, Selma, and Chicago, as in Hue, Da Nang, and Saigon, are aimed not at the domination of one people by another. They are aimed at self-determination, peaceful social change, and a better life for all human beings. And we believe that only in a world of peace can the work of construction of building good societies everywhere go forward. We join in the plea written June 1st, 1965 by Thich Nhat Hanh in a letter to Martin Luther King Jr. Quote, "Do not kill man, even in man's name. Please kill the real enemies of man, which are present everywhere in our very hearts and minds." So that is kind of amazing that they came up with that statement in that little bit of time that they had together. And then maybe they met another time or two, but maybe the next year after their first meeting is when King came out with his big speech in New York against the Vietnam War, like 1967, when most of the country was supporting the war. It was a very interesting move for him to make. But once he saw the connection between militarism and racism and poverty, he couldn't unsee it. And I think of that speech he gave, and Thich Nhat Hanh wasn't anywhere around, but who was really speaking? The two of them had a great samadhi of meeting where they were very present and they saw each other in a certain way, very beautiful. And when, shortly before Thich Nhat Hanh had his debilitating stroke, he was interviewed and asked about his feelings when King was murdered. And he said, "I was in New York when I heard the news of his assassination. I was devastated. I could not eat. I could not sleep. I made a deep vow to continue building what he called the beloved community, not only for myself, but for him also. I have done what I promised to Martin Luther King Jr., and I think that I have always felt his support." I mean, that's like a love letter. That is so intimate. That is so, 35, 40 years that he has felt that King has been with him. So this example of the two of them meeting and understanding each other, the samadhi of that meeting, and this kind of mind meld between them about beloved community, about militarism, is such a great to me, example of being completely present in the moment that that everything can happen for you. And I think that I feel that this part of practice that is communal is really important now. Because we are really at the brink. And so putting our energy and of our practice into like tonight, like just doing this is also an example, I am not it, yet it is me. Its use removes all suffering. So I guess my this is what's on my heart this week. And I remember when I talked last time, it was the day that Bell Hooks died. And I talked about how she brought the word love into like the Dharma and social justice conversation. And King and Thich Nhat Hanh really embodied that fierce love, the love that makes change, not the emotional love, not the pretty love, but love as a verb. And I see that for me, I this kind of came to me this week, that love is the connective tissue of suchness. And we need to practice love of that kind that protects and takes care of suchness. At one point, King echoed the Buddha's words, hatred never ceases by hatred, but by love alone is healed. And it was in a speech he gave called Loving Your Enemies. And he said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. So there's such a connection between Martin Luther King as a bodhisattva in our lifetimes, and what is possible when we meet across differences. And we've got plenty of differences to meet across, right? But can we somehow stay open to the prospect, to the possibility of beloved community through our practice, especially as lay practitioners? For me in my life, and I'm sure it's probably true for all of us, there's a lot of pain right now. There's a lot of illness. There's a lot of stress that people are carrying. And we can't have a private practice. We have to practice in this world that we're in now more than ever. So that's kind of where I'm at today. And so maybe people can chime in, and maybe Adam will have something to say about what we heard. But anyway, thank you for listening. And that's what I wanted to share. So speak up.
Go ahead, Adam, if you have something to add, since we don't want others to get in the way.
Hi, everybody. Mm-hmm. Hey, before I say anything else, I just want to say how much I appreciated last year's May retreat that we did online. That was really lovely, and I appreciated you including me. When I was listening to Katie, there were two things I thought of along the same lines. One was, I don't know, Katie, if it was in that particular speech about loving our enemies, but there's one line from King that I've always loved, like about this, where he said, and it's like the King that doesn't get quoted on Instagram right now, you know what I mean? But he said, Christ commands us to love our enemies, but he does not tell us we have to like them. Yeah. And he talked about how the Birmingham bombing, and was like, it's hard to like people who blow up little children. And that made me think of a thing that, because it's also, Joan Halifax was talking about how it was Bernie Glassman's birthday too. I think he and Dogen have the same birthday. And so, and he said this thing I always really liked about how compassion is kind of like that you love your enemy even if you don't like them, in the sense of like, if you cut your finger, you don't say how noble is it that I'm going to get a Band-Aid for my finger. It's just your finger, you know, and you get the damn Band-Aid.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just think when you talk about sangha and the relational aspect of our practice, I think that you know, and in the practice period, one of the talks I found really beautiful was Pat Enkyo O'Hara gave a talk from, I think, isn't she from the New York City
Mhm.
Zendo? Okay,
Village Zendo.
Village Zendo.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I loved her. I loved her talk, and she was talking about, she used this term I hadn't thought of before, of objectifying, you
Yeah.
know, where I hadn't thought of that, you know, but she was using it in terms of Dogen, you know, of instead of the, you know, the self advancing and trying to put its stamp on the 10,000 things,
Yeah.
objectifying them. And I thought that was really cool because she talked about, and then she talked about the line in the Jewel Mirror Samadhi about how it's like a great fire, that practice and even realization, or sometimes I've gotten a little nervous during the practice period with a little up here, you know what I mean? Where it's like, you know, the absolute, the relative, like we're talking about, like, you know, I'm
Yeah,
gonna wear my Chuck Taylors today, you know, or will I wear these other shoes? Like, you know what I mean? It's a little abstract. But when she has that line about it's like a great fire, and you can't touch it, but you can't
Yeah.
go away from it. That if you live in this like space of checked out, well, it doesn't matter, it's all
Yeah.
empty,
Right.
then that's sort of betraying the bodhisattva vow. But if you get too far from that holistic gut
Mhm.
way of knowing our inner being, to use Thich Nhat Hanh's thing, then you're just addicted. She said addicted to the relative, I guess.
Right.
But I love that idea of, so she talked about how, so what that means in real life is you show up to that boring city council meeting and raise your voice, and don't objectify the anti-mask spittle-flecked assholes, you know. And that's a real challenge, you know. It's a real, I live in Missouri, and I'm like really in the heart of that. And it makes me think of, you know, James Baldwin, he said that evil is militant ignorance, you know, and we talk about greed, hatred, and ignorance. So it's sort of interesting, like she said, to think of somebody coming from that place is like a hungry ghost, you
Yeah.
know, and to not even, can you, and I love this, it's the razor's edge of like, don't enable them, raise your voice, say no in the strongest possible way, sort of like what Thich Nhat Hanh was saying. What we want is to change the policy, not to destroy
Right.
them. So it's hard edge, push, no, and
Mhm.
don't objectify.
Yeah.
And so I just, that one of the things that Charlie said that I thought, it was like beautifully, it was like obvious, but also really profound. You just said nobody really practices alone. Nobody really has realization alone. You know,
Right.
the idea of an inwardly contained practice, there's something tragic about even trying to do that, you
Mhm.
know. So it's a tough time, and it's a tough time to think about sangha, you know. It's not a fuzzy time to think about sangha in some ways, perhaps as a comfort, but I don't know. Yeah, no, the practice period's been really great, and I found myself struggling a little bit with the Jewel Mirror Samadhi. Just, it's not, I'd never encountered it before, you know, and I've been sitting 25 years. So the sorry, but because I know what's the one, the branching streams, Sandokai, that one I
I
know
will
pretty
do.
well,
Yeah.
and I know they
Mhm.
chant that one too, so that was like, okay, at least I know that one. But like but this is, I'm really chewing on it. It's and so like the last thing I'll say was when Taigen Dan Layton talked about he gave a very academic, scholarly, detailed talk about the suchness of the Tathagata, and it was really good. But I kind of left and I was like, okay, what is that intimately? You know what I mean? What is it? You know, and if it was like in front of me as a koan, what would I, Missouri, show me? You know, like what would I show? How would I show the suchness of the Tathagata? So I've been kind of sitting with that. Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of the difference between Diamond Sangha practitioners, maybe, and Soto, which there's a lot of explaining.
Uh-huh.
And I think I practice with just observing the explaining with, interest, but really just listening to the words of the song, which are so mysterious in some ways, and just letting that be the imaginative part. But we've had some great explainers.
Explainers. They're terrific. Yeah.
Yeah, they're great. They're fantastic.
Yeah. I'm very grateful to Joan and Upaya for just doing this online thing. It's wonderful. I mean, it's just wonderful. And
yeah, they do a good job. If there's ever a program anyone's interested in, just, it's just all donation, and they do a really good job. So anyone else have a comment?
Yes. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Katie. It's a lot of synchronicity here because I was listening to the radio, somebody talking about the debate in the Senate about voting rights.
Mm-hmm.
And the man made the comment, Martin Luther King wasn't just about civil rights and voting rights. His fundamental message was creating the beloved community.
Oh, yeah.
And he actually said that. So I was like, that was the first time I heard that, like in, I don't know how many years somebody said that in public. So then here you are again tonight saying it again. So,
cool.
So beloved community is the idea for the day for me.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
That's nice. Somebody mentioned that on the radio. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I put in a link in the chat for Charlie's talk at the Upaya website.
Oh, yeah. Good. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So if you want to download the chat before we get too far.
Yeah.
Also, where is it here? I'm going to share it here. This is Charlie's 152-page.
Oh, yeah. It's
document.
Exhaustive. Yeah.
Where he takes each character right here.
Yeah.
Each character of the thing, and it's not short, it's long.
It's
and
real long.
And breaks it down. Like here's the title.
Mm-hmm.
And he breaks it down and he gives you multiple translations and everything. So hey, if anybody wants that, give me an email and I will email this to you. I can't put it in the chat, of course. It's a little long, but I'll be happy to email it to you. It's really a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
But as Adam said, it can kind of blow the top off your mind if you're not used to that kind of discourse.
Right.
It's
amazing. I think it's every translation he could find.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's quite a document.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There's two different words that I've used. One is exegesis, and there's expounding, and which is kind of the two different ways of reviewing the Dharma texts. One is the exegesis is sort of like explaining it in terms of what it says in itself, and the expounding is elaborating on it, elucidating it with what it means in the greater sense of it. And that's always been a tension in the treatises of Buddhism and the documents of Buddhism about whether it's strict exegesis, where it says this word means this. And the Buddha said this at this time, and he said this at that time, so that's how it's connected, period. Versus what you said, love is the connective tissue of suchness. So that's not exegesis or explanation, that's expounding, that's elucidating.
Okay. Yeah, that came to me.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's
Yeah,
important. And that tension in terms of talking about the sutras and the treatises, shastras, has been in Buddhism since the beginning. So I think that's important.
yeah. Actually,
Also, yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say some of the translations do change the meaning of some of these couplets in here quite significantly. So it's interesting to look at different translations.
Right. And of course, that's my pet peeve, is trying to where you have that the boundaries between valid translations that share the meaning of the words versus an overly reductive literal translation or an overly liberal loose translation that actually becomes the translator's document, not the original document. So that's a very interesting way to figure that out. Not that's always what I'm dealing with in translating.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, then sure. Well, one of the things somebody mentioned, which I thought was interesting, is this translation says, "When the wooden man begins to sing, the stone woman gets up to dance." And other translations just say, "The wooden man begins to sing, and the stone woman gets up to dance." So I feel like this was like culturally laden. When the man gets up to, the woman's action is dependent on the man getting up to, sing. And
right.
so,
and I can tell you,
things like that, are kind of interesting. Yeah.
I can tell you, most of the Chinese syntax does not include that word when.
Yeah.
Or then.
Yeah.
And the translator will then insert either a word like when or a word like if.
Yeah.
But the Jewel Mirror Samadhi is actually many couplets of four lines doubled makes the couplet of 8 characters. I mean, 4 characters and 4 characters makes the couplet.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the English prepositions and words like that are not in there. Also, the last sort of academic thing I wanted to say was the three verses that kind of run in connection, that are all tied with this same idea, is the Sing Sing Ming, the faith in mind, followed by the Sandokai, followed by the Jewel Mirror Samadhi. So Sing Sing Ming is attributed to the 3rd ancestor, Sandokai attributed to Shirdo, and Jewel Mirror Samadhi attributed to Dongshan in the Shirdo lineage. So if you read all of them, you see the very intimate connections. So as you were reading it tonight, it was like I couldn't just hear it. I was saying, well, that's also in the Sandokai.
I know it very much echoes the Sandokai. Yeah. But I feel like this has a lot more, I don't know, just symbols or.
Oh yeah. The imagery is enhanced.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love the imagery of the black badger and the white bull.
Yeah.
That stuff is great. Oh, so last thing I want to say for Adam, in my translation of the treatise on arousing of faith, there's this great line. I think this makes it kind of intimate to me. Because there is only one mind, it is called true suchness. So that, to me, takes it out of the abstract. Yeah.
One thing that jumped out at me also was that within the Jewel Mirror Samadhi, I don't remember where this was in the koan curriculum, but there were 2 lines that are koans. I think maybe in the introductory koans, the snow and the silver bull and the heron and the moon. And so it was neat. It was like, oh, old friends, this is where you came from, but like, but so that was kind of cool that somebody who wanted to make it that intimate
Mhm.
and a koan work, pulled it from there, potentially.
Yeah.
Back on the thread of practice,
Mhm.
people can get really good at practicing without, it's in musicians talk about people getting really good at practicing, but then not being able to play.
Yeah.
Well, practicing.
Oops, your sound just went off, Richard.
Richard, you got muted. You have to unmute yourself.
I didn't, I have no idea how that happened. Anyway, when did that happen? How far back?
Don't start at the beginning, I don't think. No, maybe a couple of sentences or 3 or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
My thought about practicing is
Yeah.
that people get very good at practicing without getting good at knowing themselves and having self-realization. You can get really good at just sitting there and not make any progress that's relevant to your life and relevant to the universe. Good for you, but that's not engaged Buddhism. So,
Well, yeah, I think that's what Charlie was pointing to about Zen is not a private practice.
exactly.
If you find you're in a private practice, you're, off the mark there. What practice is, this communal aspect of practice is practice.
You can do practice by yourself and not and still be in community.
Yes, sure. And as lay
Just
practitioners,
to
we
point,
all
yeah.
are.
Yes.
Thanks. Richard. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Any other comments or?
Pardon me, I did one thought I have just listening to Richard. Oh, sorry, did somebody else want to talk? Okay. One thing I think about sometimes is, and I don't know how this was in Japan or China or obviously radically different context and time, especially, and culture. But just even listening to people at some of the seminars at the Upaya stuff. So Joan Halifax always says, hey, remember, this isn't therapy and this isn't us visiting. Tell me about your practice. Mm-hmm. But I notice people need to talk about their pain. And yeah, they just do. And one of the things I think about is, I think a lot of people come to meditation, I want it to ease my pain. You know what I mean? And that's such a human thing to want, and like totally understandable. I don't see that as greedy at all. But one of the things I think of there is just that, this is like, I got this idea from one of Jack Kornfield's books, but that idea of, I think some of the people, especially the vibe I'm getting from some of the folks is it's like, I can only work with my own pain. Like expanding beyond me sounds really scary. And Kornfield, I love that practice of his of use your pain to make compassion, of be with everybody who's feeling like this. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And what I noticed when I've tried that, is just it does the opposite of what you expect. Instead of like weighing you down even more, it somehow lightens it. Yeah. Because there's community in acknowledging the suffering. But I mean, I know that looking back on the beginning of my practice, I think in a way that I still have compassion for, was kind of in a private practice. You know what I mean? I think I had, I started by reading kind of the classic beginner books like Kaplow's one and Aitken's one. And the Kaplow book is just full of like, and then I got enlightened and it was like a super, super like fireworks show, and it was amazing. And it seemed like this goal. And it was kind of cool how Charlie's talk had like an element of an antidote to that, with that idea of, he talked about, instead of getting something from practice, giving, that it's an act of giving. And I love the way he used the word non-transactional. Yeah. That really takes you out of that private place, of I'm giving and I'm giving till I drop dead. You know what I mean? Like, this is not a goal-based practice in a way,
Yeah.
but it has intention. And then Joan does a lot with intentions, which is new for me, but I really like it because I feel like that whole, all right, you sat down, what are you doing here? And she has the whole, that's totally new in my Zen life of set an altruistic purpose rather than a self-seeking purpose of may this benefit and may this reduce suffering. And I like that, it's almost like the work is purifying the motive a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
I'm sorry.
I'm done.
Thanks, Adam.
One thing we hear often enough, well, you can't solve the problems of the world until you deal with your own shit.
Mm-hmm.
Some paraphrase of that, some version of that. And in my own practice, when I began, I certainly had no idea that I had anything to offer the world, and I was extremely needy. And the practice was for me. It was the gift that was given to me to help clarify the great matter. And to the extent that I was able to receive that gift, what grew out of that, and I've heard somebody talk about it, was the bodhicitta mind.
Mm-hmm.
But it did have to start for me in the inner clearing away of the delusional view I had of who I was and what I was doing here, being a human being. So I don't know why that came up for me just now, except it's about the community. It's about being the sangha, the beloved community. We do come into the community with a lot of baggage.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some sort of grace that could help us remove the baggage, lift the weight of it enough to see others, to participate in community in a compassionate way. And I think that's a variation on what you're both saying about what you're talking about there at Upaya.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably everyone comes to practice with their hair on fire, right? I mean,
well said.
Something's got to change. And
Yeah.
but also, we think we're these miserable people crawling into the meditation hall, but there's probably, there's a wisdom, there's a great wisdom that put you there, that brought you there. And
a miracle, actually.
A miracle, but it is a wisdom that gets to grow even through our weeds and grasses, right, of confusion. So trusting that, is what we eventually do because we stay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, meeting yourself with your hair on fire and sitting through that opens up your ability to see others with that. And to me, when I see others with that, I just come to it with just opening up with compassion, right? But I couldn't hear it without opening up myself, which is a little bit sort of self-narcissistic, but it's something I need to move through, really, just to experience my own nincompoopeness or my own wonder or clear that out. And then the world opens up. It's just sort of amazing like that,
It's kind of a tantric process or something, Yeah. Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate the conversation. It's great. And thanks for participating tonight. So
yeah, thanks for introducing us to this text. It's really
so happy.
Really cool poem.
Yeah, it's called a song too. I love that. But
yeah,
which is great. Yeah. Okay.
So,
Can we give Katie a
Katie?
hand and a nice bow for her practice, and just invite everybody to carry this practice out in the world and build those beloved community that Katie was talking about everywhere we are, even if we're seemingly alone, we're in a sangha of the whole universe. So Gregory.
Well, Katie, I want to ask you a question.
Something's,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Do you have any musical compositional skills?
There's a lot of background noise. I can't really hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know. what
Maybe
the problem
everybody
is.
has to mute. Everybody should mute, maybe.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Do you have any compositional music skills?
No, I wish I did though.
That somebody should make that into a song.
Well,
that
we
would be
did
great.
hear that they sang it at Mount Shasta. They
Oh.
had a music. There is a musical score, and I think they even passed it out to us. So I'll see if I can get that and send
Oh,
it to
that's
you.
funny. Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
I know. So it's nothing else much is called a song. I don't think. I know of the Song of the Vajra, which is a Tibetan song in an unknown language.
Well,
but-
Hakuin, of course, called his the
Song is
song.
not Zen, yeah.
Yeah. Song of, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I love the things called the song.
Yeah.
That's so human.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Singing and dancing are the voice of the way.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. Drumming and singing go together. Okay. So we're gonna end with
Okay.
a
Yeah,
So
we'll go
Is-
into that. So if anybody has any additions to the dedication for sick or recently deceased, you can say those now.
Sophia Eva for healing.
Sophia Eva,
EVA, yes.
Clay for healing, for Clay for recently passed. Sorry, I'm blocking on his last
right,
name.
during the last week, say.
Yesterday, I think.
Okay.
And anybody else have more for the list? Just a quick thing I want to say before we shift. All right, so I just want to say that we will have Carol giving a Way Seeking Mind talk next week. And Way Seeking Mind talks are not teaching the Dharma, but sharing your own practice and your own Dharma from the truth that is alive inside of yourself and your path along the way. And I'm really grateful for Carol being willing to share her practice with us and her many years of developing diamonds and gifts in her own heart. And then we have Christine speaking the next week, and then Phil the week after. And next week as well, Gregory will be starting his sutra study class on Thursday at 4:30. Is that right? Gregory, do you want to just say briefly? You're muted, bud.
It starts at 5:30. We did that for Katie.
Perfect. So it was starting at 5:30, and we did that definitely
Yeah.
for Katie, if you want to be able to come.
Yeah, 5:30 to 7.
And can you just remind us of what we're studying, just so people hear?
This is the treatise. So when I mentioned the treatise on the arousing of faith, and one of the emphases that I have on it is to emphasize it's faith in mind, not as the earlier translators all said, faith in the Mahayana or faith in the Mahayana Dharma. It's not. It's faith in mind, and so it'll be over 8 weeks. The first week will be an introduction to some of the issues, the history, the title, the outline, and then it'll, in the next 7, we'll go through it in roughly, in my translation, about 10 pages at a time. So there's a link. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but Katie signed up on it. There's a link to sign up for it. Katie, when you signed up for it, did it force you to pay something, or did it give you an option that you could sign up without paying? You're muted.